Those familiar with Roman, British, and Scottish history are well aware of Hadrian's Wall, the 117-kilometer stretch of fortifications spanning English countryside from the mouth of the River Tyne in the east to the Solway Firth in the Irish Sea to the west. The wall was designed to strengthen the border of pure Roman imperial lands south of the wall to wilder areas lacking former Roman control in the north. It was garrisoned by small forts known as mile castles, constructed at each Roman mile intersecting the wall, hence the name. Construction began in 122 CE during the reign of Emperor Hadrian, and the wall would serve its intended purpose off and on well into the 5th century. While scholars have learned much about the construct through archaeology and written accounts, few of the more fascinating aspects of the wall have failed to enter public conscience. I'm Johnny from Mortar and Ivy, and these are 9 facts you did not know about Hadrian's Wall. Number 9. It does not, nor has ever, marked the England-Scotland border. It is a common misbelief that the border separating England and Scotland is based on the array of Hadrian's Wall, or at least one time was. But in fact, the famous landmark has never in British history marked the dividing line between the two countries, not even during Roman times. It is true the wall roughly mirrors the border to its north, and while some sections of the wall are within 1 mile of the dividing line, other sections are as many as 70 miles away. Number 8. Emperor Hadrian personally oversaw construction. Many monuments of ancient Rome are typically named for the emperor reigning during their construction, such as Hadrian's Wall. Except Hadrian's Wall is an exception because unlike most of these monuments, such as the Antonine Wall to the north, this wall's construction was actually overseen by Emperor Hadrian himself. In fact, Hadrian was considered a competent architect and engineer during his day and offered his personal input to the planning of the project. Number 7. It was not called Hadrian's Wall. Were Donald Trump to fulfill his promise and build a wall bordering Mexico and the US, it would probably refer to as Trump's Wall and not Donald's Wall, because Donald is a very common male name, and many innocent Donalds might get caught in a backlash, as it is with Hadrian's Wall. Historians refer to it as such, but this is a later development. Hadrian was a very common Roman surname, and to name the wall as such would be fairly redundant and slightly confusing. Rather, it was probably called Aelius's Wall, or more likely, Valum Aelium, Aelius being one of Emperor Hadrian's more recognized first names during his lifetime. Number 6. Much of it was turf. While visions of Hadrian's Wall inspire a romantic stone edifice stretching miles across northern English countryside, much of it wasn't actually stone. During the wall's first iteration under Emperor Hadrian, approximately 1/3 of the build comprised earth and turf with simple wood and stone fortifications. Not exactly intimidating to a bloodthirsty Pictish lord hell-bent on destruction, but oh well, whatever floats your wall. Number 5. It was already there, kind of. Placement of the defensive wall was not by any means spontaneous. Rather, it was built along a pre-existing geological marker, an igneous intrusion of dolerite rock stretching much of the length from North Sea to Irish Sea. Using this pre-existing geological formation made construction and defense of the wall significantly easier, cheaper, and more effective. I find it so adorable when those ruddy Romans use their noggins. Number 4. It inspired George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire. Any casual fan of either Roman history or Game of Thrones must surely know the parallels between the wall that separates the north of Westeros and the realms of wildlings and Hadrian's Wall. This is due, of course, to author Martin's inspiration of his wall by the historical construct, though Martin's wall is about 200 times the size of Hadrian's Wall and made from solid ice. Poetic license, I guess. The similarities do not end with the physical wall. Just like Martin's Night's Watch, Roman soldiers had to follow strict rules such as taking no wives while stationed, though this rule did not last very long, for obvious reasons. Number 3. It was all built at once. The adage goes, Rome was not built in a day, nor was Hadrian's Wall for that matter, though it was built rather peculiarly. The average layperson might envision the wall's construction beginning at one end and concluding at the opposite end. Not the case. Rather, construction on Hadrian's Wall began mostly concurrently across its expanse, and completed 6 years later. Number 2. It was, at first, short-lived. After construction completed, the wall was only used for about 12 years before the Roman Empire under Hadrian's successor Antoninus Pius grew more ambitious and constructed the Antonine Wall further north, spanning modern-day Scotland from the Firth of Forth in the east to the Firth of Clyde in the west. Easily transported objects such as doors and gates were carted north for use in the new wall, and the Hadrian's Wall ditch was paved in places to allow for freer movement. Unlike Hadrian's Wall, Emperor Pius never visited Britain, allowing Roman governor of Britain Quintus Lollius Urbicus to oversee construction in his stead. And unlike Hadrian's Wall, the Antonine Wall was shorter, cheaper, and almost completely composed of wood, sod, and earth. Despite these shortcomings, the new wall took twice the length of time to build and was only used for half the duration of Hadrian's counterpart. After an upheaval of native militant behaviors, the Antonine Wall was likewise abandoned, and Hadrian's Wall was resettled, refurbished, and this time completely in stone. Scholars refer to this iteration of the construct as the Severan Wall, after another later emperor, Septimius Severus. There were many Romans and Britons living at the time that witnessed the wall's construction, abandonment, and eventual reconstruction, most likely shaking their heads in disapproving folly. And finally, number 1, it became a major British highway. Not in the sense of a heavily used high-speed motorway, but still a very popular B road. By the early 18th century, the Hadrian's Wall was in serious disrepair, and though many of the stones had since been carted off for other English building projects, still many had remained intact. That was until 1746, when General George Wade ordered the construction of a military road stretching 31 miles or 50 kilometers directly on the wall's foundation and using the wall's very stones. General Wade felt hurried to construct the road to escort troops in a timely manner following several Jacobite insurrections in the north. It is considered to date the number 1 most destructive act ever committed to the landmark. As time grew, as did the road, and Wade's military road, as it is known, not to be confused with the Roman-built military way to its south, eventually became part of the B6318 that stretches from Headon on the Wall in the east to Greenhead to the west. Despite this blatant disregard for a national object of affection, much more of the wall was preserved, thanks in part to one John Clayton, and can be visited and cherished today. So who knew a wall could be so interesting? I wonder if the building of the wall was one of Hadrian's major political moves to prevent the illegal immigration wave of native Caledonians. Just forget I said that. Just scratch that, etc.
I've been Johnny. You're always welcome in my neck of the woods.
But now his fire has gone out. And now his watch has ended.
And now their watch is ended.